A rescue team responding to wildlife emergencies rarely knows what they will encounter, but nothing in their training fully prepared them for the call that arrived early that morning. Rangers had received reports of distressed roaring from a cluster of acacia trees near the riverbank, a sound both urgent and pained. At first, they assumed it was a territorial dispute between lions, but when villagers added that the sounds were mixed with loud thrashing and the unmistakable hiss of a massive snake, the rescuers understood they were heading toward something far more dangerous. The team quickly loaded their gear, tranquilizers, poles, ropes, and protective shields, and raced out with the hope they were not too late. As they approached the site, they moved cautiously, aware that any sudden noise could escalate the situation. The flickering shadows between the brush revealed the outline of a lioness, weakened and struggling, her breathing ragged. Nearby, her cub whimpered under a fallen branch, unable to stand. At first glance, the rescuers thought the attacking animal had already left, but then they saw the powerful coils of a giant python wrapped tightly around the lioness's midsection. The snake was enormous, thicker than a man's thigh and long enough to stretch across several yards of sand. Its scales shimmered under the sunlight, a chilling reminder of its strength. The python had clearly ambushed the lioness, likely catching her off guard as she attempted to defend her cub. Injuries on the ground suggested the lioness had fought desperately, managing to claw at the reptile before becoming trapped in its crushing grip. The cub's cries grew louder as the team crept closer, each step calculated so the snake would not strike out at them instead. One wrong move could have meant disaster for both the rescuers and the wounded animals. Communication between team members was hushed but urgent. Their plan required precise timing. The python needed to be distracted long enough for someone to administer a tranquilizer dart, but even then, large snakes do not go down instantly. Any delay could cost the lioness her life. Two rescuers positioned themselves behind protective shields while another prepared the dart gun. The team leader signaled silently, and one ranger stepped into the python's line of sight, tapping the shield to draw its attention. The huge reptile paused its constriction and lifted part of its body, tongue flicking in irritation. That moment of hesitation was enough. The tranquilizer dart struck the snake near the upper body, and the python recoiled violently, loosening its grip just enough for two rescuers to use their poles to pry its coils apart. The lioness collapsed to the ground, gasping but still alive. The snake thrashed for several minutes before the tranquilizer began to take effect, gradually slowing its movements until it became still. Even with the python subdued, the team didn't relax completely. They knew large reptiles could regain mobility if the sedation wasn't strong enough, so they worked quickly. The lioness had deep bruising along her ribs and puncture wounds from the python's fangs. Despite her injuries, she attempted to stand, driven by instinct to reach her cub. The rescuers gently guided her back down and secured her for transport, knowing she needed medical treatment before she could care for her young. The cub, though frightened, suffered only minor scrapes and dehydration. One ranger wrapped the small lion in a blanket, speaking softly to calm it as they prepared both animals for the trip to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Transporting a wounded predator is never simple, but the lioness, sensing the presence of her cub nearby, remained surprisingly calm. Once they reached the center, veterinarians immediately began assessing her injuries. The python's crushing force had caused internal bruising, but luckily, no bones were broken. With treatment, fluids, and rest, experts were confident she would make a full recovery. The cub stayed in an adjacent enclosure, close enough for the lioness to remain aware of it without aggravating her wounds. By late afternoon, word of the unusual rescue had spread, and conservation officials praised the team for their rapid response and bravery. Encounters between lions and pythons are rare, but when they occur, the results can be deadly. In this case, quick action prevented what could have been a tragic loss of both a mother and her young. The python, once fully sedated, was safely relocated to a distant area where it could continue its role in the ecosystem without posing further risk to local wildlife. The lioness and her cub will eventually be released once they regain full strength. For the rescue team, the mission was a reminder of why they endure long hours, unpredictable dangers, and the emotional weight of wildlife emergencies. Every life saved, whether large, small, fierce, or gentle, is proof that their courage makes a meaningful difference.